Hi everyone, welcome to Please Find Attach. You'll notice that today, it's a little different today. Yeah, you're not just stuck with Sheon and myself. We've been blessed with a visitor on the blue chair today.
The chairman.
And last week we were talking about salary delays.
That was 2 weeks ago, I think.
Well,
yeah, recently
we were talking about salary delays, and we decided that instead of just talking, we should bring an expert in the field.
No, the people responsible for it. The people responsible for it. You don't have my experiences that you don't hear the explanation.
So, ladies and gentlemen, viewers, we're blessed today to have Mr. Sheyi Fasanya, who is the HR director at DHL Express.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure to have you, sir.
It is a
Welcome to the show, Sheyi.
Thank you.
And our first guest.
Ooh.
No pressure, but our very first guest.
So, Sheyi, do you know what came to my mind? Anyway, I don't. Why do people, companies, organizations pay salary late?
That was not the full topic. Is it, are they going through a lot, or they just have disregard for stuff?
Yeah.
Well, it actually depends on first philosophy,
Okay.
you understand, for the organization. If you have a global standard, best practice, you definitely want to toe the line of a great place to work.
Yeah.
And with that, your people welfare is quite very important, understand? So if you toe that line, then if there are salary delays, I could give you some of the reasons. Say, for example, there's a merit circle. At the back end, what people really don't say, there could be some, say, in a unionized environment, you've not totally closed out, negotiations, or you have just done that and it's close late to the window where there's a cutoff period where you have to impute data in order to be able to pay. For that reason, you may get to delay for a couple of days, because usually for us, we try as much as possible to ensure that when there's a merit circle, it flows along the line. Everybody can earn it. But there's also the critical side. Sometimes there could be mistakes, you understand?
Mistake.
Yeah. You are spooling salary details and then you realize that, whilst
There's ghost workers.
There's some error, somebody has designed, or you will be paying someone. And if you miss that window, usually it takes a bit of time to recover. Now, at the back end also is, if you're not handling salaries on your own, probably you have a provider doing that, there's a cutoff time. And once you don't meet those cutoff schedules, there's a cost implication to it.
Wow.
You understand? You have to pay. And in my own organization, you're actually paying dollars. You understand? And they would then tell you it will take X amount of days, either within 72 hours to another 1 week to run that cycle.
Wow.
And don't forget that that's just not all. Once they run their own data end, at the front end, we also have to look at it to be sure that those numbers are correct.
Okay.
So, but what we try to do as much as possible is that we pay the premium to expedite it, because we want to be a great place to work. But however, there's also wanton disregard from some employers.
I was waiting for it.
I was like, makes sense. I get to be. Okay. You have cases where the signature is not around. The MD is the only signature. He's out of the country. He cares less.
Yes.
He's not signing. He's not around to sign those. Because, salary is quite weighty. It constitutes about 10, 20, 30, 40% of the entire revenue. So some entrepreneurs or some business owners really tighten the loops and they make themselves the only person that can sign it off, and that creates a problem. Imagine he's sick, imagine he has liquidity issues or whatever it is. That's that. There's also the liquidity aspect.
Okay.
The business may be experiencing some challenges, and salary, maybe you're even expecting some of your clients to make some heavy payment and they've not done that, you understand? Until you have that liquidity, unfortunately, you won't be able to pay. You understand? So that could be one of the reasons. Beyond just wanton disregard and disrespect from other employers, there are other administrative back-end issues that may happen that may cause delay. That usually are not anticipated.
Okay. So, whose fault is it? Usually, is it HR or finance?
Okay, there are two elements to this.
Yes.
In a very structured environment, there's what you call DOG, delegation of authority and all of that. Reason why you have that is HR handles the complement aspect and finance handles the payroll aspect, which is input data, payment, tax, and all of that. I won't totally say, well, beyond what is outside our control, there could be error from either the complement person. There could also be an error from the finance end as well, because we've seen situations where data are mixed up. Just about when we were going to pay, we realized that, oh, you didn't take out the number of people that left, or you hadn't done some correct review. Maybe you have an expert there and here and there. So you have to hold it down, make sure you get it right. Because usually what employers try to avoid is you pay some people and fail to pay some other people. It creates, it creates an orifice in the entire system. So we are left with no choice but to. But in terms of accountability, HR takes accountability.
Even when finance faffs.
In
fact, it's HR everybody knows.
Yeah.
It's HR I'll go and meet what's going on. Everybody has that, what's the person now? That connect in HR that you start chatting on the 24th, the how far. I don't correlate. I don't pretend it's just waiting for our CFO to please. Yeah, chat at 9 p.m. That CFO has approved.
Especially that season where there's bonus.
Yeah.
Season when there's salary increase. How far?
But there are those colleagues that always act like they don't need the money. But that bonus season, everybody is humble.
You can say that. Let me give you a typical example. Recently, we paid out some bonus. I don't know if you heard about 1%. One thing it's called 10% of the entire revenue for salespeople. It's a sales commission thing. And
sorry, 10%.
1% of whatever revenue. What are you talking about?
Okay,
hold on. It was 750 million naira that was distributed. Some people go over 100 million naira. I'm not joking. You're coming to the step. But anyway, so imagine when we were about to pay that. There's a lot that has to go on at the back end because you want to be careful. Some people got 100, 80, 60, 70, and all of that. You need to be very careful to ensure that you don't overpay, underpay, and all of that. And you need to also be careful that it follows the salary run. You understand? So all of that can happen. April, for example, is our time where we pay bonus. And this is a critical time and merit also comes into play. You understand? So if we don't fully get, say, for example, board level approval for some people in terms of merit, regional level approval if you're a multinational organization, if you don't get those approvals on time, it could also delay. So what we do in HR is we at the front end, we take accountability, we take responsibility. So we ensure, my style is communicate.
Thank you.
Because if you don't control the narrative, there's definitely going to be ambiguity. There's going to be
rumors inside the organization.
And then, it gets out of hand. So communication aspect and the interface actually remains with HR.
I wanted to ask, sorry, Ide. There was something you said now, and I realized that a lot of HR people say it. Why must bonus and all those things, why must they follow the salary cycle? Why can't they be paid alone? Is there a reason for saying you want to make the salary look larger than life? Because for me, that's always like, you want it to make it look like, you are earning a lot of money.
I get. But there are compliance and regulatory reason behind that. Now, before, a lot of organizations could get away with paying outside payroll. But right now, the law is quite very strict. Everything actually goes through payroll. For us in our own organization or any standard organization, what you realize that anything that is paid to staff must feature on payroll because there are tax elements to it and all of that. You don't want a situation where the authority comes in and then the tax guys come in and then they're looking for some fund or discover some fund. They say you're not compliant. It has great implications for the organization. So the reason why it flows through payroll is because it has to feature within payroll for tax implications.
And that payroll must be once a month.
Yeah.
You can't have payroll because I understand that there are financial institutions that pay twice a month. So why can't you have payroll? Because what then happens, back to that bonus talk, there was a time we were expecting bonus with payroll. And then something minor like MD was not around or like the salary was okay.
They missed it.
They missed it by 24 hours.
Then you have to wait.
So in my mind, my
have to wait.
own normal mind was like, Titi next week, sha. Everything. You now said the salary after. I say you have to be
joking. The next month.
Yes. Like is it not man that made the machine and everything? Why can't you put it immediately? And the MB now say apologizing, you know, it was in between flights, blah, 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 blah. I didn't care.
I can imagine.
Because people had planned that money to
yes, now because you're looking at it, you want it. A thought came to my mind.
Okay.
So in the last few,
why are you touching our guests? Can you not talk without touching our guests? You are touching the man's shoulder like this. You know what? Our future guests will see that.
Yeah.
In the last, let's say the last 2 or so years, cost of living has gone up.
Definitely.
You know, we had that situation where
subsidy was
removed, petrol went up, cost of food went up, everything went up, inflation went up. The one thing that didn't go up for most people, salary. Why? Because you're representing all HR people. It's like representing all federal government. Why?
Question is this: what's the bottom line like? Now, cost is going up. We look at it from a personal perspective, but neglecting that it also has a corporate implication.
Yeah.
Your vendors are increasing their costs. Your cost of running business is going up. Your customers are demanding for more discounts, more, you understand. You realize that it's also eating into revenue, your EBIT. So most organizations like to keep their costs a bit down because look, it's unprecedented, you understand? It's not like, it's something new for everybody. Everybody is evolving. We don't want a situation where you'd eventually increase salary. You find out you can't maintain it. And then you can't go back on that. You understand? It becomes an issue. If you're in a, let's say, unionized environment, one of the problem or challenges HR people usually have or management has is you want to extend some form of cuts in terms of what's it called, palliatives and all of that. But usually what will happen is that we end up burning our fingers because the unionized environment end up seeing it as a right. It's hard to pull it back.
Yeah.
So to be safe, most organizations would decide like, look, let's do the BRS minimum. Let's say stay in the safe zone.
Everybody can rough it.
Yeah, let's rough it. But however, a forward-looking organization may rough it at that particular time, but after some time, you need to understand that the cost of commute is going up.
Yeah.
It's impacting the whole cost of standard of living of your people. You'll see situations where people are finding it hard to come to work and all of that. And look at it at the back end, their dependents and all of that. So a forward-looking organization should also be looking at an out-of-cycle adjustment, like a COLA, cost of living adjustment. So if you're able to at least, you know, for people, for employees, it's just do this simple. Just show us you care.
This cost of living adjustment, is it like an increase in salary or like a one-time payment?
It could actually be created as a one-liner in payroll.
Yes,
I understand. So it would add up, but it's something you can take off. It doesn't necessarily go into your total pay
package.
It doesn't. Okay. It sits alone, so it can be withdrawn.
So now, as HR, say you are an organization, you're making money. This thing did not really impact your bottom line. Is it HR's duty to go to management and say, come on, you know we have money, we are making money, life is hard, increase staff salary? Or is HR like, I don't want problem? What's the guy will say, are you not supposed to be on my side? Because you know we treated that topic. In fact, that was the next question. Is HR your friend or management's lucky? That was the next question. How do you look if you go there?
Who is he? I was touching him. You brought my mind to this. What is it?
So how do you look if you go to management to say increase salary? I've had MDs that will look at you and just nod. And when you go to your system, you won't be able to log in. This one came to tell me. Or how open, I know multinationals are open to that kind of discussion, but is it mandatory? Is it HR's duty to do that?
Okay, beckons to the question, is HR for management or
for the people?
I think the answer usually is it's a balance. don't forget, HR is also an employee.
We don't like that.
Crucify them last week. HR is also an employee, you understand?
Okay.
But at the back end, there's also the mindset with management when you're looking at critical mannings and back end support and all of that. HR is not at the front end, it's actually a cost center. And that's why, a lot of senior leadership, they're kind of very wary because for them, HR is just spending money. If it's commercial, they're looking for ways to bring in revenue. But HR is always talking about benefits, pay, merits.
Okay.
So it could be frustrating. Now, let's look at it from this perspective, which a lot of people lose sight of. Your MD, if it's a board kind of environment, reports to a share owner. And that share owner has set a target for him that he needs to meet. If he fails to meet that target, it has implications. So at the end of the day, he's protecting himself.
Okay.
You understand? That's number one. Number two is also, well, in some cases selfish, because he knows that if he depletes his revenue or profitability, it also impacts on his bonus sharing and all of that. But beyond that, where HR comes into play is we have a very frank discussion with management to say, look, what's the implication if we don't do this?
You lose people to other organizations.
Attrition or redundancy. And the cost of replacement is usually higher. You understand? So it becomes on the question of where you sit within your industry. You may have an advantage. If you're leading, for example, in your industry, you're the market leader in terms of pay, in terms of, market share and all of that. You're already paying a premium higher than, the normal industry. So to that, you may just tweak a little. But if you're actually matching or lagging, you are more challenged because the tendency that they may steal your high potential people. It's very hard.
But so if you are like my dream organization, it was my dream organization. Where do I want to work?
All companies.
All companies.
Come on.
If you're in another company, then in fact, if you're in another company, then you're just like, I go now. go to banking. Go and sell IT. Because there's really no threat and they already pay very well.
Correct.
So I'm moving on.
Cost of living.
No, we've talked about cost of living. I've experienced you at least in 2 organizations. So seeing you work, I used to have pity on you because you have to listen to stories. Talk. So I'm just curious. You of course, they are private. What is the craziest story or scenario that you've experienced in your career?
So many actually. Which are we talking about? Are you talking
anyone?
About any
story that
management with.
In fact, since you have the different, start with management, then we'll go to others.
Without saying too much, sometimes you run the risk of being backstabbed. You understand? By even when you say management, we consider your team members in management, your people in management as your team members. So there's sometimes where, let's say somebody is trying to look good out there, you understand? And things that could really be managed is escalated in order to make it look, he brings this to the attention. And then at the end of the day, he tries to take the shine, and all. I'm trying very hard to censor you. Maybe you should have used something more low level. So it could be distraughting when you find yourself in that, especially when your good intentions, people go behind. I've seen situations where an incident happened and we're still managing it, and you get beckoned from by called by your regional office telling you that we had this happen and HR didn't do anything. And you're kind of wondering, and everybody is screaming. Your VP is already, screaming up the roof. His contemporaries, the other VPs are already screaming. And then you found out that it was somebody, one of your peers that actually snitched.
God, we talked about
snitched on you actually. And the story wasn't exactly true, and I was actually able to defend that. And eventually, he didn't really find it very funny because at the end of the day, he was put really under the fire and HR was exonerated. So, and then, unfortunately, HR then had a sleep. Well, what's really a sleep? I'm not giving too many details. But at the end of the day, people try to throw you under the bus. That I can say. In the unionized environment, right before I joined this organization, there was a situation where, it had to do with salary review. People were unionized and non-unionized. You have that true killer. And then they were increasing salaries for the people when, okay, well, put it this way, your CBA, you negotiate for 20%. And then the organization decided, oh yeah, the union guys negotiated for 20%. Okay, please, I'll give 25 to the non-unionized. And they did that for a couple of years. You understand?
So,
and the union guys were like, guys, you shouldn't do this. Don't do this.
no, but it could be construed to, you're trying to discourage people from joining the union.
Of course. Unfair labor practice, yeah? Yes.
Is that unfair labor practice?
Yeah,
With money.
Yeah, with money.
It should be unfair to me like that. It should be unfair to me like that.
Yeah. And right before I joined, because, you know, it was still within the same industry, I asked, I heard you're coming in. You know what? Just hold on a bit. What will happen is that we want to go on strike. But we don't want that to happen when you joined us. So I need you to chill a bit. Let's do this and all of that. But I also understand that you know how it starts, but you never know how it ends. And I would be unbothered to quench the fire that I didn't start, but I would get myself into a lot of problem. But at the end of the day, what we discovered with a lot of analytics and all of that, we realized that there was like a 34% variance in the pay of the unionized and the non-unionized eventually.
34?
Yeah, about, yeah. 34. It was 34. So we got regional approvals and everything. And but that wasn't the snag. The snag was that the NLC president was already in Lagos, chilling in the hotel. Ready
to
Nigeria. I love Nigeria.
Ready. They were what they intended. Mobilized. They had they wanted to mobilize. You know those anyway, they were going to shut down the entire system. But at the end of the day, because I was coming on board and I had built myself some very good reputation, I was able to create trust. But of course, with good knowledge, we ran off to the Minister of Labour and Employment just to be able to start a conciliatory session. And we were able to
everything was fine. So I have my last, okay, not a question, it's a question we should have asked. One of the things we wanted to find out from a HR perspective, I mean, if you look like at a chairman like Ide, senior man, as they call him, what is a minimum pay level that you think in Lagos of today? Okay, I mean, he lives in a mansion, so maybe if he's not living in a mansion, what's the average pay that you think a married man with children should earn? To be, how would I put, I don't know the English. I
get.
Just be, your children will go to a decent school, you live okay, you have a nice car, you go to church, you come back on Sunday.
Car? Oh yeah, car.
Come back on Sunday, you eat white. Oh, car doesn't feature.
Well, it depends. What range are you looking at in terms of
thin lights? You can afford a thin light now, or big for nothing. It's just a decent life. Okay, let me put it, the kind of life that our fathers in civil service raised us on wasn't ostentatious or loud. How much is that in today's Lagos?
It's hard to define, I'll be honest. And reason being that it depends on your status, your scope, your
social
circle and all of that. He didn't grow up in Ikoyi, so if I tell you to move to Ikorodu,
he will swear for you.
You get it.
He will swear for you.
You understand what I'm saying? So
it's how he's blushing.
So his story will be different from somebody in Ikorodu, Songo, Yaba, Surulere, and all of that. You understand? Because there's some level of flexibility that you have, and that's why I said the social status. You grow up in a flat, you probably would move into a flat, and you own your house. But for them, they grew up in one room, probably moving into a self-contained and all of that. So what's good enough? Adding the caveat of family and children and a car is another thing entirely.
If I remove car and say, okay, how much can you not survive on? At any level, we do Songo with a family. How much would you hear that a company is paying a married man and you say, you can do better, regardless of where he's living?
Okay, so how much, like I said, is still relative. For example, you can get a good room and parlor for maybe 100, 250, 350 per annum. And then you pay the agency fee.
In Lagos today?
In Lagos, yeah. Yeah, you see what I'm sure they can relate.
150K.
Yes.
What is going on here?
150K per annum. I don't believe that too.
Oh, come on, go to Songo. So go to Songo inside.
Room and parlor.
Room.
Okay.
Sometimes room and parlor. But crazily, it's becoming very unattainable actually too, because rent is actually going up.
Mm-hmm.
So in that kind of instance, I'll give you a gentleman, two scenarios. A gentleman that's recently mentee about 150K per annum.
Mm-hmm.
You have an option. It's either you live with your parents or you decide to move out. In this case, he needed to move out, certain private reason.
Yeah.
So he got himself a place. I can't remember, the total package was about 750 or 650,000. It's just a basic room. You understand? And he's also dating at the moment. He earns 150, 170. Okay. And he doesn't own a car. Okay. Well, I try to find out if he goes on dates frequently. He doesn't do it too often. You know, so it's very possible you can live. But what I also say is this: the new world that we are in right now, there are opportunities that are hovering all over
everywhere.
Yeah. So you can't afford to just say, "Oh, I earn 80,000 naira here, and then I stay with it." I started my career with 12,700 naira. Can you imagine how much that was?
You're paid well,
You were how much was my own? Mine was 15K.
No. 12,000.
Sorry, are we talking NYC?
No. First full salary was 15K.
12,007.
Me and that our guy.
It was 12,007 when I left, because he actually increased it 12,700, and then I got a job with MTN. But before that was about maybe 11,200 or something like that. You know, and my boss will usually say things.
And that 15K I used to buy petrol.
I'm doing the maths. You know, you are a gone. So yes, it makes sense. Makes sense.
So now he needs to cut down on his cost and live within his means. He jumps the bus, he hops in and all. Imagine adding with 150, a wife.
He can't marry yet now. I don't even think he can marry.
Well,
if he comes to meet you for advice, tell him not to marry you.
He can't afford a full-time housewife.
Yeah, he can't. Yes.
So he can marry, find himself some young lady who is also, you know, building, and they can build together, pool funds together. And then what happens if they are blessed with triplets? Well, anyway, let's not get into that.
You just see a picture of the governor's wife.
So in terms of what you can live with, is actually relative. It depends on what social status you want to, you know, if you choose that you are going to be earning, or you may not have a choice. You're earning 150K, then you need to cut your code according to
your cloth.
Yeah, your cloth.
Okay, so my last question is around resources, human resources. I understand that Japa has made the workplace very, it's difficult to recruit from, I think, assistant manager upwards. So is that true, and why?
Okay, I would say that it's not just assistant manager and down, but we won't talk about, you know, the lower cadre, because you know, apparently the quality that we're churning out in our schools are questionable at the moment. But in terms of for the experience, we've come to realize that there's a dearth of skills. You understand? You throw out an advert, you have people, hundreds of what's it called, applicants, and at the end of the day, you find out that you're not really able to get. So what usually will happen is the strategy would actually be to buy. That means you go poach.
Wow, that's what you call buy.
Yeah, we'll go poach. The other one is this: for a very skilled human resources person, and depending on the job owner's risk, how do you call it? Appetite, actually. You can actually gamble on a good potential and then train it. I prefer that sometimes, depending on the role, because you know, once you get that potential and then you're able to train, tendency that he may say
loyalty.
Wow. Relative. But at the end of the day, what I tell people that a lot is happening around the space of AI. You should start developing yourself. There are opportunities out there, but it's just always the problem of finding the right fit for the role.
Thank you, Shay. My final question, because we want to start getting guests into the chair.
Okay.
Considering that the theme of our podcast, which is this final attack, it's really about career, growth, workplace, business. Who would you like to see in this chair in a future episode?
Okay. I would say somebody who is techie. You understand? Okay. Techie in the sense that, you know, the world is moving into automation, AI and all. For example, in our own organization, we recently did a restructuring, not because of revenue, because we're making mad money at the moment. However, because there's a lot of automations and processes that have been, you know, and all. So you don't need people at a certain level anymore. Headcount is shrinking.
Yeah.
Organizations are going lean. So you need somebody who's going to come in and talk about how people can develop that skill set. People are afraid that AI is going to take their job.
Yeah.
Well, however, the people who will keep their jobs are the people who know how to navigate AI, who have developed some level of expertise around it. I can say that even for me, I'm discovering and evolving on a daily basis. And that's what I would expect. I would expect someone to come in and talk to people frankly. If you want to be relevant for today's market, then you have to upskill.
Wonderful. And
Fantastic.
I think you just
wrapped up for us.
You just wrapped up for us. Shay, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for being our first guest.
Thank you.
I think the decision to have your
Is one of the best decisions we made that we didn't argue over.
So,
yeah, I mean, fantastic show. It will be also nice to know from our guests the kind of people they also want to see, or any particular guest in tech that we should be thinking of bringing. It will be good to have that feedback.
with that, I'll say thank you all for joining us. Have a fabulous day.